screen share?
Yes, ma'am. Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, we are doing NCPA for our design. So I've chosen this particular Denver Center for Performing Arts in Colorado. Um, thing with this particular performing arts is that like it has a lot of accessibility features. So some of it includes like it has different. It has like wheelchair accessible theaters. So these some of the seatings it'll be having wheelchair accessible seats as well along with the companions. So uh, in the entrance itself we can see the ramp being present over here just at the entrance. So yeah, over here. So at each different levels they have provided ramps, and it's basically this particular cultural center, it's sort of more friendly towards the disabled people, like in terms of the performances as well, and in terms of the public audience. So they have obviously they have wheelchair accessible seatings and ramps and elevators. All those are available. They're having parkings at different levels, and each parking they have like there was a video as well which showed different like in different levels the parking for the accessible or the disabled people. They are having it one thing which is close to the elevators and minimal distances, as you said yesterday. You said like there should be minimum less than 30 minimum walkability. So even that was present in this particular case study. And again they're having curbside drop off, so there is no particular, they don't need to get over the curve through different sort of step and all. They're having a straight so a small slope which is easily accessible for the accessible people. And they're having sign language interpretation for their different performances, and they're having captioning devices. They're having open captioning for the deaf people. And for the visually impaired, they're having braille programs, and they're having different audio description this thing as well. They're having devices which they can easily get from the reception, and they can enjoy the performances, and they can even have the same luxury as the other abled people. So I've seen this particular case study to be a little disabled friendly. Like it's based on
Very good,
universal design.
very good, very good, very good. Actually, this is the way it should be done. Very nice, very good.
And like here, can I zoom into the plans and can I just show the?
Yes, definitely.
They're having 10 different performing spaces, and like some theaters they're having long lot of spaces, like nearly 2000 seating. So here we can see the disabled seatings are provided over here, this area. So is my cursor visible?
Yes, yes, it is
Yeah.
visible.
Yeah, the disabled seatings are provided over here, and they can't provide the seatings in the like on the raking, right? So they have just given it towards the edges of different this thing. So rather than for them to go up through the raking, they have just given it easily accessible. So what they'll be doing is, if there is any disabled person who is coming, they'll be having like there is a temporary seating. So in case that disabled person doesn't come, there is a seat as well, like the folding chair. So they'll be having folding chairs in these disabled places. So if anyone comes, they can easily unfold the chairs and they can just keep it aside. So this sort of this sort of pattern is followed in all the different theaters. So and even they're having access to different floors. It's not just that like they have access to only one floor, since they're having ramp and they're having lifts as well. So in all the different floors of the theaters, we can see there are disabled seatings provided. So it's mainly in the last floor, so the walkability is less.
Yes, yes.
So they have given it like that. So in different in all the theaters, in all the 10 theaters, they're having accessible seatings.
Good, good, very good. Very good.
Is there anyone else to present, or shall we move on?
Yeah, so yesterday we had Surya Prakash sir's video to be telecast. I think, shall we see that now, sir?
Yes, yes, we can see. I think we have some questions. Okay, after the video, will see the
Yes,
questions.
yes. Monisa ma'am, can you screen share the video?
That's it.
This is just to
Gaurav
highlight.
sir. Yeah, this is the recent disability of people. So how we are going to fight and face these kind of problems in future. And COVID-19 has taught us a lot of things, but it has increased the because Corona will wind up in another few months or days. But the future pandemic is what we have seen it now, and let's all try to come out of that disability.
Actually, this has a term. I think it is called joy walking, and
Okay.
there are many design considerations which are coming up, keeping in mind the joy walking concept. And
Oh, okay.
something is available in Google. You can check.
Joy walking, is it?
Joy walking. Actually, one of my students during design, what she did before the design has started, she had given a selfie tower in the entrance, and she tells that is the point from where the entire building frame will be visible, and we can take a selfie from there.
Okay.
So that is the mindset now which is coming. That first we should be able to take photographs and use mobile, then we can go for the design. So that is a new thing which is coming up.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Can we?
Ma'am, I guess you muted your mic.
You could now invite Gaurav Raheja.
Yeah, so I'd like Srinidhi to invite Gaurav Raheja, sir.
The introduction is over. We can.
Yeah, so you can start, sir.
Over to you, Gaurav Rageja, sir.
Okay, madam, I've sent you the presentation. Can you share the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes. Monica, ma'am. Monisha, ma'am. So you can put your video on.
Oh, okay.
So you can start addressing in the meantime, Monisha.
Fine. So I think I've been listening to Gaurav and the students and everyone else, including the video. I think the mood is all set. Frankly speaking, time is the only worry right now. But all I can say is and compliment the entire audience if they are joining with us right now. That friends, this whole idea of universal design and the debates that we are discussing, wonderful projects Gaurav has presented. Compliments to you, Gaurav, for taking the lead in taking this whole thing forward, because it's not any single person's job, and the presentation that I'm going to kind of make to you, I deliberately chose to be slightly softer on my lines of communication rather than go hard on technology right away, because I think that's the soul which I'm wanting to connect with, right? So I think now the screen is visible. I don't know if I can use my pen on it. Sorry.
No, sir, you may not. You would not be able to.
Oh, okay. So no problem. Okay, fine. I think we will go with that. So friends, just to get started, I titled my whole talk as Universal Design and Essence Through Narratives. Now, I think over the years of little experience, what I have started believing in is that at young stage when we are learning about architecture, I know you will get a lot of content today on web. So frankly speaking, my role of teacher also has to kind of slightly evolve. So what is it that I would like to address, frankly speaking? So I'm only trying to address to you right now today with 5 simple narratives. They are simple, but let's understand simple does not come easy. There's a big distinction between simple and easy. Otherwise, the mathematical problems in the world would not have used the word simplify the equation, right? It's a complex job. And that's something that I'm trying to drive here, because I don't know if I give you any codes, and I guess Gaurav has already touched upon a lot of those things. So I'm not going into all that, but I'm trying to be slightly philosophical, slightly storytelling, and slightly with examples so that the message gets across, while how to do it, we can take up further. I know there are a couple of questions which I would surely wish to take if time permits. Can we move to the next slide? So I've titled it as 5 narratives, or you can say 5 broad storylines. The first storyline to me is, all of us, when we're looking at architecture, we are focusing a lot on how we see it. And how we see it is also very distinct, very perceptually oriented. The way you see a thing, your parents may not see. And the way your parents are seeing it tomorrow, your next generation is not going to see it. So why are we so sure today that what we are going to generate as a form is going to really work? So here I want to add to you here is, what is important for us as architects in the making is that we have to transform our sights into insights. And the insight basically means, when you start acknowledging what's happening and then you start reflecting upon it, and as a consequence, what you get is neither a sight nor just, I would say, a physical entity, but a whole experience. Can we go to the next one? So this sight and insight requires you to question, friends. And I am just leaving these 3 questions for you, which could perhaps do a goal setting. The first question is, how do you see things that are happening around us? Why are we, I think, puzzled about architecture in a particular way? Why are we so confused? Why are we trying to overemphasize something and neglect something else? Why are we micro-scaling architecture whereas its impact is so huge? How are we living in our houses? How are we walking in our streets? How are we managing into our workspaces? How are we studying in our institution? The role of architecture is not on the moon or on the space like Mars. It may also be eventually there. But the first role that you have is what's happening around us. And especially when you're today in COVID, can you see the impact of architecture around you? The second part of this is how are we then responding to what is happening? So just in the last film that you saw, how are we behaving in the same public transport systems now with a screen in front of us, right? How are we walking on a street, jaywalking, as he mentions, are all common phenomena. We'll keep getting the new terms. And we, unfortunately, you know, the saddest part of humanity is we start claiming them as new normals because we want that normalcy should be there. So we are now moving with masks just because we couldn't protect ourselves. Now masking has become a new normal. The third important point, therefore, this should be a question which, so these are questions. I don't have one single answer to this, but I believe these questions can set a whole discourse, a whole dialogue, and a whole process to find an answer is, then what is the role that I can, or I should, or we can, or we should be playing in the future of the world that we are going to engage with? And here I would for a minute have to say that we may remain architects, but we can always be beyond what architecture is also. Because please understand that our roles, if they're only limited to brick and mortar, only limited to physical terms, I would say the world has fast moved and transformed from there into a set of what is called as experience design. So today you're not paid just to create a building. Today you're paid when you actually at the end deliver a service which is worthwhile and makes an impact on life. So the whole idea of universal design here, frankly speaking, is an ideal. An ideal is something which we know is difficult to achieve, but it keeps pushing you towards achieving that, right? So can we move next? So the narrative too is therefore, you know, to talk about built environment has been something that we have been doing for so many years in architectural education. But here, critical point here I'm trying to add is that in this narrative, what we have to build is the human component into it. So as much, and just go back into your classrooms and think about it. How much you know about materials, how much you study about strength of materials, how much you study about structural systems, how much you study about theories of design, how much you study about so many other things, building construction technology, digital technology. But how many times are we studying the humans for whom the rest of the things are being done? And this is a very important discourse that unless we connect to the human psychology, the human behavior, the human performance, the human aspirations, the human needs, and the human changes that the way he or she is responding to as a society, as a culture, the whole study of architecture would remain incomplete. So the narrative too is to build around a case where you have to see that the role of creating an environment is not just restricted to the built one, it's also an important one is the unbuilt one. And today we will have to talk about these as examples further. So let me show you a small case, not from India, but let's go to Venice for a moment. Can we go to the next one? So I'm also recollecting when I went to Venice in 2016, my first time, and I went through a train from Florence and reached the city on waters. You have to actually arrive at a bridge, from where the rest of the entire city through which you connect is there. And the whole, the grammar of that bridge would tell you that it would have been none other than Santiago Calatrava who's designed it. Can we go to the next? So this is how the city of Venice looks like, a city literally so densely packed, so beautiful in its historical character, but all connected through bridges and waters and canals. Now, what is that bridge looking like? Can we have a look at that? Next one. This is the bridge, which was newly designed somewhere, I think, in 2008 or so. And this is how the bridge looks like. A fantastic, fabulous form. But what got my attention that day was everybody is lifting their luggage to this place. Everybody is carrying a child in a baby pram, is pushing or negotiating with that. Of course, I didn't see too many elderly people, but I'm sure even they would move in the same way. Can we go further? And this is something that kept on, bothering me. And then I found out how would a person on wheelchair who comes for a travel and tourism to a place like this would really manage, or any other person for that matter. Even you could temporarily injure yourself. And here is what I found my answer after I came back from Venice. Go back. Please go back. Yeah, that this bridge had costed something like 4 million pounds, But what had got published ever since this bridge got created in 2008, that this 4 million pounds bridge actually injures the tourists. Now, what I'm trying to actually put a question to you, friends, I think I was having this discussion yesterday also. Today, we've become a penny wise and a pound foolish generation sometimes, because we invest so much time to analyze and think about a product which is even 500 rupees or 5,000 rupees. But what happens when your entire life savings are to be put in the development of infrastructure for which either you've been paying taxes or you've been actually building it from your own nose? Say, for example, an apartment or a house costing something like 70 lakh rupees, 50 lakh rupees, or a crore. The question is, we do so much of analysis to analyze a 5,000 rupee product which you buy from Amazon. But what is the analysis that we are doing to invest into the infrastructure that's going to be for us? And it's one in lifetime. Those products you can keep changing, mobile phones, your iPads, your iPhones, etc., etc. But what about a house? What about an infrastructure? What about your institution? So what is really important here is a perspective that I'm bringing from Venice, that this is what happened, and let's go forward. So when there were so many complaints that this bridge is inaccessible not just in one way, but it makes the whole city inaccessible to move across. Can we go further? So then they added a small capsule on the other side of this, which is a special capsule which can take a person with wheelchair into that whole thing. So if you see on the left hand side, what it writes is that it becomes a wheelchair accessible after 5 years. Now, this approach is precisely the approach that we find in our building industry. First, we build the way we want to build. And then when a problem comes, we start solving it like this. Even if you call it Jugaad, or you call it universal design by ad hocism, or you call it barrier free, or whatever, this is a very, very stupid solution. But it costs you a heavy amount. And then, the story doesn't end here. This wheelchair pod, so now they call it wheelchair pod, is operative 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So if you're going little before that, if you have an early morning flight in Venice to catch, you cannot cross this bridge if you have a wheeling device with you, because you have to take a bus by like 5 o'clock, and then the airport is like half an hour away from here. And you see the bridge has again steps, and not only that, the steps have a kind of fiberglass which when it gets wet, it becomes even more slippery. So not only that it has steps which make it further slippery, while the purpose of doing this was, I guess, the architect's theme, and is about giving it a certain kind of an aesthetic value, giving it a certain sleekiness. We appreciate all that, but please understand, where is the cost factor going into? Cost not in terms of only money, cost in terms of impacts on human life. The unfortunate part is that when I say penny wise and pound foolish, is that we are checking costs about money in the pocket, but we are forgetting about the costs that are the costs of human well-being. We are forgetting about the costs that are talking in terms of time. We're forgetting about the cost that is generated in terms of stress. And we don't know how many years of life are we losing. In fact, today's study says in cities like Delhi and in India in general, we're losing in Delhi around 9 years of your life by virtue of pollution. So while we are investing into so many other things, we're not looking at the real agendas on which life depends. And how can architects continue to ignore this? So friends, I believe we have to really take the baton in our front hands, and if we have to really lead it, we have to look at issue-centric perspectives and connect the whole debate of environment with the humans. Can we go further? And what happens when an aware society talks about it, So this is, of course, these are pictures that I took, and you can see from here in a distance, there's a bus there, so that you take to get to the airport and get connected to others. And this is how the baby pram moves. This is how people move. You see a gentleman with 2 baggages and 1 backpack, a small child with other person, and of course wheelchairs cannot move on this. And this is 21st century bridge, so nothing old, nothing new. But I'm just bringing these examples not to really bring a comparison between India and abroad. We know India is even far more different. But the perspectives I'm trying to bring here is that the entire globe faces these challenges, right? Just that somewhere the systems are better to perhaps deliver those services, we even have to work on those systems. Can we move further? And I'm also trying to tell you, go back, sorry, sorry. So on this, actually, you know, the architect Santiago Calatrava was fined, and this entire case went into the court jury. Last year, the judgment has come, and the architect has been penalized for putting a bridge like this. What I'm trying to tell you here is that it's no longer a debate about architecture as a myth and fancy of what I wish to do, but today we have to understand that we are also actually becoming criminals if we are not catering to the side of humans together. And just imagine who would be a client in this case. Your client would be the municipality of the city. But who are the users? The users are not from Venice at all. They are mostly foreigners. They're people elderly, and they have age, they have gender, they have abilities, they have disabilities. So it caters to all. The question is, as an architect, what are we actually asking for is sensitization of us in connecting with humans. But the question is, how do we connect with humans? Because there are no books that tell us how humans behave. And therefore, I would only suggest is there are 2, 3 best practices to learn from that is, one is engage with the field. Second is don't ignore what's happening around you as something out of context. It's very much in the context. And third is keep questioning, how can I make a difference? Only then you will keep in connect with what the realities are and perhaps take these forward. So what I'm trying to say is an aware society has been able to pull down even an eminent architect for a fault that he has been penalized for, though the case was in court and finally they won that case. But the point is the people are still suffering. The bridge cannot be taken over, right? Can we go next? So to summarize this narrative, this is an idea that how do you design an experience? You can see the big duckling and the smaller ones. So you might have done a good intentional project and you've created a certain infrastructure, but at the end what happens is there are a certain set of users who are actually becoming victims. And as you already see, and then we go back and search where we went wrong, and then we start this whole as a retrofit process. So the whole one single line, if I can say from this narrative, is don't look at architecture as buildings, don't look at architecture as mere entrances or tiles or surfaces or materials or parametricism or whatever forms of architecture. Look at a piece of architecture as a complete holistic environmental experience. And when you say environment, it means everything. It means physical environment, it means social environment, it means ecological environment, it means everything. And we cannot leave anything on someone else. So we have to take the charge of all these things. And that's how I believe the second narrative concludes. Let's go to the third one. Now, the third is about a connect, which I think Gaurav has already mentioned. I'll just quickly move through. That this whole story of universal design, of course, emerged somewhere way back in 1985. And let's remember the father of universal design as a term. Can we go to the next one, ma'am? Is architect Ron Mace. Why I'm kind of, talking about it, already Gaurav has mentioned about this. Please imagine, if this gentleman was not on wheelchair, what I'm wondering is if this term universal design was not there, not that we still need to really borrow and copy it, but the question is, this could also be an important contribution. So don't imagine that your contribution to design will only be through a built form. Your ideas, which can bring and connect the societies of the future in a very meaningful way, can equally be a very responsive act. Architect Ron Mace brought light to things which most others, or I would say 99% of architecture, had missed, ignored, even while living in what we call it as the modern century of architecture. Right? We had modernism, we had postmodernism, and all forms of contemporary architecture, even with good technologies that had developed in the industrial era. The sad part is the architecture continued to ignore this for only one reason, not because they could not do, but because nobody ever thought that this could also be required. Because we looked at architecture only for majority and not for the minority, and which started creating a big disturbance. Can we go next? So if you actually see, this was the earlier definition that was given in 1985 for universal design. I just want to read out this to you and with highlighted text in green, which is the essence of this. It's about design of products and environments. It doesn't use the word building. To be usable by all people, please understand, all people, to the greatest extent possible. So it's not trying to impose upon you anything, but it says, please, by your own wisdom, try that what you're designing and check that, is it valid for the greatest extent possible? Try that without the need for creating a special adaptation or a special design, right? However, this definition continued for almost 2-3 decades. And now we have another definition, which is there in 2012. Can we go next to that? Which talks about universal design as a process that enables and empowers a diverse population by improving human performance, health and wellness, and social participation. A point I'm trying to make here is that the world of universal design is also advancing as the advancements are happening in the rest of the world. But the advancement is actually going deeper into a human side, that to say that universal design is not an idea of charity. It's not an idea to work and worship only a set of people with disabilities by virtue of a good human kindness. But it's actually about improvising human performances for everyone. It's about well-being. If a certain product, if a certain environment cannot give me that, I don't think we should be able to consider that as good design. And at the end, if it does not converge, bring the society together either, I would say the define has somewhere, or in some sense, I would say has actually become exclusionary and not inclusionary. And thirdly, a very important point is, earlier when you were talking about design was at the end a product. But here, the shift that has happened in the new definition is it talks about universal design as a process. So it's very important that if you start following this process of a human-centric approach, understanding human performances, and how many times do we really connect with people. So I think I'm going to urge to all of you friends that please look back into your homes when you're in COVID. It's a wonderful opportunity to observe your parents. And through that observation, start observing yourself. There is no reason that we have to fight out these wars within the homes of certain preferences, but question, when you sit on a dining table, why do we have 3 different preferences? When you go to a washroom, why do we have 3 different ways of using a washroom? When you go and sleep over a bed, why do we have those kind of preferences? And when you even watch a television in front of all of you, what happens when 3, 4, 5 people in the same household are watching? Are we able to collectively watch television, or are we glued to our different mobile screens? And is it bringing society together, or are we actually getting farther? Are going to be the questions that we have to ask in terms of happenings around us. Can we go next? So these were the 5 set of principles, which of course we were part of the authorship team in 2010 and 11. But we kind of consolidated the references. The key highlights of these principles, I believe, if you see, is in Hindi. We chose the theme S, this word Sir, to understand and connect to India. But very critical, I think the 3 parameters which were missing in the earlier universal design principles or were from the Western world did not talk about was, one is the cultural preferences, So if in India you look at a washroom, the way we use washroom and the way our dress forms are, the way our whole, experiences are, you'll find it is a very integral principle to design a washroom beyond mere ergonomics and beyond mere anthropometry. So even I would say, I know many people in this country who, despite an available of a preference of a Western WC, still prefer to use an Indian WC, which we know is actually considered better for bowel clearance and other things. But by virtue of how we've shifted to a kind of a WC there, is now becoming a more universally accepted thing that is kind of a universal design thing. But if I give you an example from Japan, even in the bullet train, which is a modern train, they have 2 kinds of WCs, one which is an Asian squat and second which is a European squatting. So what I'm trying to make here is that the cultural relevance is of great importance, and therefore sitting in one corner of India, designing for the other corner of India, it's still a challenge, which is something that we as students of architecture have to continuously learn upon. The second important point, which is not there in the UD principles of the West, is the economic consideration. We know 80% of our Indian population cannot afford a solution. So frankly speaking, half the problem is affordability. If there is affordability, we could even afford any of the techniques. And here I want to, address and appeal to our youngster here is, of course, please go ahead with great technology, but please understand technology without a prefix called appropriate technology is not going to work for us. I know of many institutions in India which worked on several kinds of climbing wheelchair designs, right? It's a great innovation and which also works for India. But the sad part is you've not seen enough users of that, because most of the rural India still moves on the ground level. The wheelchair is a big misfit. So what can you do with a mobility device? The biggest challenge in a rural setup is the threshold, a threshold which is 300 millimeters high. How do you cross over that from the household? And which is your biggest barrier to go to even education? So it's not only, the barriers of infrastructure are not just barriers to limit your movement, but they limit the entire access to life. And if we as architects can take some of those agendas in our hands, I would say we can become revolutionary people. Please become leaders. Don't just remain architects. And you can become leaders if you can work with societies, if you can take those plunges. There will be failures, there will be upsetting times in between, but only if we take them in a mission mode, only then things will move forward. The third component is about aesthetics. Now, aesthetics is not about, I'm saying, a mere sense of color. Aesthetic is something about personal aspiration of how I wish a particular space or a particular product or even my own self to look like. So, which again requires you to understand the context very relevantly. When you select a material, when you select a size, when you select a space, and all those things go into the making of what I would say a more inclusive, a more relevant, a more contextual, and a more accessible piece of architecture that we can. Of course, I'm not going to talk about equitable and usable right now, but in one single line, if I can say, our country is at the verge of high, intense inequity. So therefore, friends, it's not that you as architects can control and regulate that immediately, because it's coming from the government policies, it's coming from the current situation of how our demographics is, it's coming from the economic situations that we are in, but we have to take an action based on that. The problem is if we as architects today still intensify our buildings with high energy costs, with high maintenance costs of materials, with high other kind of things, even if you make a cheap product, the maintenance cost and the durability will eat the money in. So you have to look at really long-term solutions which can be called sustainable in the whole thing. A third point which I want to make here with Universal Design India is that Universal Design India is an embedded idea of sustainability. So when sometimes we start disputing between sustainability as something different and universal design something different, that's not really the idea. Universal design is an idea and an ideal which is about sustenance of human life. Just that it starts taking an approach from a social angle, but it equally is resonating with the ideologies of sustainable development. So please understand, let's not get into this myth that we learned sustainability there, we learned universal design here, let's do this, let's not do this. No, it's all needs to be integrated, and that's the kind of dimension that we need to look at. Can we go next?
Great.
I can't, yeah. So, these have been the kind of books that have been published in this sector. And I'm saying 1977 was the first publication which came as Barrier-Free Environments by Michael Bednar. And in 1999 came the only first book. So it's almost like after 20 years, the other book got published, which is Enabling Environments. Go next. And in 2012, can you go next? Universal Design was published by Steinfeld. I'm just putting this book because Steinfeld has been, after Ron Mace, one of the key authors of these entire theories, and he has led this movement in the US from State University of New York, Buffalo, since 1970s. And he happened to be my PhD examiner. and who kind of acknowledged my work and cited my work in his book in 2012 as well. And based on which, in 2016, I published my own book out of my own work, which is basically a glimpse into a rural site, because the whole debate, I had in my head was that all of us, of course, I mean, why are we disputing this term architecture in this way, that when our entire curriculums are only focusing on urban centric architecture, which is a very sad situation, because, and then how can we talk about India? The problem is that the big mismatch is that we talk about urban centric, while urban centric India is only 20%. And then our kids are looking for jobs in those sectors, and they're kind of misfit for a rural sector. So I just wanted that nobody else will perhaps take that path. So I started doing some work in the rural areas, and I can tell you, more than I could solve a problem, there was intense learning that I would like to share with you in my next narrative. But this is what I'm trying to say. The field of universal design, accessibility needs further people to come in and advance these areas and contribute your knowledge into these areas, even by your thoughts. Let's go forward. So this is how the field has evolved. The narrative 4 is about empathy and experience. Friends, there is no profession today that can exist or can touch human life while we have abundance of technology today, abundance of Wi-Fi, abundance of artificial intelligence enveloping around your life. Can I ask you one question? What do you think is missing from your life? If we have everything in our touch, what is it that is still missing? Why are we still mentally and emotionally disturbed? And I think the only one finding that I have is that we today are lacking human to human connect. We're getting an amazing amount of information, YouTube, etc. And all that for free. But what we are not getting while it is freely available is the connect between the human and the other human. So the empathy and the experience part, let me just talk to you about. Can we go next? Is through an experience that I met Ms. Deepa Malik, who you might know, some of you, who is a champion Commonwealth Games and who actually fought across her life as a hero. And when I met her, I remember in Accenture company in Bangalore, where we were invited to share the stage. So she said, post my presentation, that it's an amazing phenomena, in our country. You can see her flag of India, which has a chakra in the center, right? She says, the entire century believed that wheel is the center of movement and development, right? On the basis of wheels, we have flown. On the basis of wheels, we move in cars. On the basis of wheels, we are moving. So wheel is a symbol of time and movement. But when I come on a wheelchair, you see me as a symbol of disability. Isn't it very paradoxical? Right? The same wheel on which we move, now you see it as a symbol of restriction. And that philosophically cannot resonate with us, That's hypocrisy. That if wheel is a symbol of life, the chakra is a symbol of time, how can a country that talks about wheel in the center of its own heart start restricting wheeling devices as their movement? And that's kind of a hit onto the basic rights of any human, So here is the empathy component that we have to really think about. Can we go ahead? So she kind of fought all odds, and she expressed beauty on wheels. She expressed valor on wheels. She expressed strength on wheels. She expressed sportsmanship on wheels, and she fought with the society to do on the wheels. But friends, please understand, not everybody is Deepa Malik. But many or few such examples have been able to tell us that yes, humans have indomitable capacities within themselves. But can an architect or a designer, if doing justice to himself or herself, would be able to release their capacities without asking them these questions, would perhaps be very critical, that you are not trying to touch upon the dignity of an individual by asking these questions, that are you on wheelchair or are you not on wheelchair? It kind of hurts the dignity. Are you blind or can you see? Are you able to hear or are you cannot hear? Are you learning disabled or not? These are the questions many a times our building systems are actually asking people. Even when you don't have a signage system there, the building is raising a question how to discover a washroom in the whole apartment or in the whole public institution. Many people are not getting jobs, not because they are not capable, but because the job location doesn't have an accessible washroom. right? I know of a couple of cases where the people have left the job. They were offered the job, they sat on the computers, they did well, but what they found at the end was that the wheelchair could not access the washrooms, and as a result, they quit the jobs. Next, go next, please. And here's a story of Karthik. I think I'll just be quick on this, who could not get admission to IITs because he was vision impaired many years back. And so finally, where did he go? He went to Stanford to study biomedical engineering. So, a question is being raised on us today, friends. It's no longer a debate of we as architects. We are representations of a 21st century society. And the question is, what are we doing about that? And by virtue of the knowledge of architecture, I believe we should be equipped enough to fight for these causes in a very proactive way, use technology, use resources, use community participation, use other methods of organization, and raise this demand. Please understand, some things you will get by rights, some things you will get by awareness, some things you will get by economic investments, and certain other things you will get by the right planning. So it cannot happen if we just sulk by saying that we have the knowledge, but nobody is taking that knowledge. It's something that we have to fight for. And only then you'll find people are fleeing from this country because they're not finding accessibility in our education systems. Can we go next? So these are the scenarios that I'm talking about in the rural environments. I was studying a lot of mobility impaired students. You can see the guy in the middle, Mukul. Do you know how he became a person with disability? He was injected a wrong injection. And for his entire life, he is now kind of going to crawl. And now just imagine this is the surface that he has to crawl on. So if you can give a paved infrastructure, it would perhaps be better. Can we devise an assistive system so that on his hands, he can afford something which does not bruise his hands? He crosses drains, but as a consequence, his walkability has got limited to only a few meters. And as a consequence, he does not receive education. He's never going to get employment as a consequence. And eventually he will be a burden or to his own parents and society. And that is where the empathy goes for a toss. You see the other guy on the right-hand side in a tricycle who comes on a tricycle to take a bath under the hand pump because he doesn't have a washroom at his home. And when he does that, his feet get dirty when he goes back onto the wheelchair, because when you take a bath there, your dust again gets collected. So there are so many such examples. On the left-hand side, you see a lady who, I think it's a shame to say that there are people with disabilities. They are not. They are doing entirely everything by themselves in the absence of anything else. So this lady is rearing her 2 children and who lost one of her legs, and now she goes to fill her bucket of water every day. What I'm trying to say is, are we even aware about it? So I'm not even trying to impose and say that, okay, we have to do great things. I just wish that if we have the opportunity to first see the world around us. So the first question that I'm again repeating, what's happening around us? Have we seen this? Have we cried enough for this as pain? Have we as architects felt that we're not even aware about this? These are the users of the environment who have no way to talk about their own selves. Can we go next? So there are many such examples that I see. This is a girl, Sonia, who crawls to even watch TV to her next door. This is a girl, how she crosses a drain. So many examples I can cite, go further. These are from the village studies that we did. Move next. So I try to understand, if you have to use a washroom, what this guy actually goes through in a whole system. So what I found is, first he has to reach, which means he has to traverse a certain distance. The second is he has to approach through a doorway, the second element. The third is he has to transfer himself into a position, which is by a 180-degree turn. And then he or she has to use it by you getting into an anthropometric comfort zone. And finally, he has to ensure that it is safe enough for him or her to actually use this entire washroom. So you'll find that this ethnographic experience through a methodology called a trace study approach, if we can do such kind of trace studies even within our own homes, you will find there is so much knowledge about architecture that you can gain. So it's again going back to the question, what's happening around us? Go next. And this is a lady, who of course is not married. And when I did this survey, she was 35 years of age, who cannot stand up. She has a squatting posture because of her deformities and issues in leg. She was surviving at that stage with her elderly father. Just tell me, elderly father, 65 years of age then, how would she manage her household? And should I tell you, she had not crossed the threshold of her house yet. We talk about imprisonments, we talk about prisons, we talk about, in Hindi, we call it, Nazarband and all those kind of things. What is this? This is also 21st century India, right? And she was given this toilet under a campaign called Below Poverty Line scheme, as a consequence of which, while she got a toilet, but the toilet has added more inconvenience. Can we move next? Which I analyzed using this kind of a drawing tool. So we did it on a Google SketchUp to understand how she has to move. So she has to, every time she has to use a washroom, she has to actually walk through the wet area, which is a bathroom. And then she has to take many turns in order to come into a posture that she can use the washroom, which anyways is not fitted with a tap. She has to manage to first fill the water there and do all these kind of things. So what I'm trying to ask you is this a solution or is this a problem? While we could discover a beautiful solution for this, which I think I'm not here, I could have sketched it here, but the simple solution would have been to segregate the washroom and this, and make the alignment of this WC with a 90-degree turn. Then she would have entered from a door on the left-hand side, and just with one 90-degree turn, she could have actually managed the entire process of using a squat washroom. So what I'm trying to say is, let's go into the depths and details of how humans use certain spaces. And this is something which is, I would say, simply cultural, something not a rocket science, but we in India must be at a great advantage to respond to this because we know how it is used, right? And these are things which are missing just because we do not have the knowledge coming from empathy and knowledge that comes from experience. So I would restate that, empathy and experience needs to become a very integral part of our learning processes in order to come back to an approach of universal design, whether we use that term or not. Can we go next? Humans, you can classify them in many ways. So it would be irrational to say that universal design works only for people with disabilities. No, it doesn't. Look at it, for example, today you go to airports and things. There are people of all kinds of religions. Now, if they want to worship and pray, where do they pray? Can you have one single space? So I have seen in many airports something called as multi-faith prayer rooms. It can be a wonderful example of universal design. On the other side, I've seen a hotel on the airport, a 5-star hotel, which created a separate room in the name of person with disabilities, but created a restaurant which is 2 steps up. And when we asked them, and we were auditing that, how would you expect a person to use this space or the room? They said, well, we will serve that person in the room, but we will not, he or she cannot go to the restaurant. And secondly, can you imagine, it's kind of a joke, I would say, that room did not have a provision for another bed for a person with who could be a caregiver. So even with best of projects, we are finding such kind of ignorance is happening. And can we do something about that? So if you look at classification of humans, you'll have to look at age as into an ethnographic perspective when you define a kindergarten, when you look at religion, when you look at culture, when you look at nationalities. So what happens when nationalities change? I was trapped in France, just 2 days after the Nice terrorist attack. And I was shit scared in the metro station because I could not discover the exit signage, because there the exit is written as sortie, which is in French. And I could never imagine that sortie could mean exit because it was also written in blue color. So the color significance could be a cultural significance, could be a nationality significance, and the language significance. It can put you in absolute trouble. So you have to look at that again as mobility experience. And if you look at all these perspectives, if you look at even gender, there are so many personal issues with male and female gender that the washrooms need to accommodate about. And one big contest that the India of the future has to talk about is debate upon where should you have the baby changing station. In Japan, you will find the baby changing station is also a part of the gents toilet. And today in India, now if you have a female but a gents child, she again has to take. So we, because our social stigmas are still putting gender as a classification in that form. If you're really unisex, if you're really 21st centuries, let's put a baby changing station in both washrooms or create one independent so that both genders can actually use it. And at the same time, the economic status of humans creates big divides, because of which we are facing this idea of exclusion all the time. Can we go ahead? So if you look at, this word user is not a simple word. The user means these classifications that I'm putting in front of you. And we know we do not go into details of each user type actually. And unless we start doing that, how are we designing sensitively? Because we are thinking all the time what we call as an average user. Can we go next? So if you see, the users can be classified in these levels of mobility, in these levels, and they don't come in a box, they come in the form of pyramid. And let me tell you, all of us must have faced at some time or the other, at least little sickness, little fever, little baby pram at some stage. So you can see that these are also dynamic. So you are not always at level 1. Sometimes you may shift in level 3, sometimes you may shift in level 4, sometimes if you're lucky, you can come back to level 1. But many a times with age progression, you will find that you're not able to move to level 2 again. So when you're designing a housing for that matter, you cannot keep imagining that you're designing for level 1. You have to keep imagining that one fine day, somebody could be in level 8. And that is when universal design could be embedded in the planning stage itself, right? Can we go next? So if you look at disabilities, again, it's a misnomer to say disability is only permanent. All of us actually are in a category called TAB, temporarily able-bodied. We don't know what might happen to me even when I go back after this lecture. If I slip, it's raining here, I could break my bone. And there is a third disability which I add just through the reference of the film, which is called as situational disabilities. So when I have a mobile phone in front of me and I'm walking on a street walk, I might miss a step and I can fall. Many a times, I think people are actually going to face all these kind of challenges, and you're seeing. So in London, what they've done is there are few people who lost their lives while crossing streets. So in London, every street crossing, you'll find people have painted the municipalities, look left, look right, because the people are not looking straight these days, they're looking down. So they've painted floor signages. So the concept of floor signage is becoming a very interesting response to the situational disabilities that we have. Can we go next? And if you now go further into details, there are like 21 types of disabilities that the Indian laws accept. And then you add to them socially marginalized groups, people with disease and illnesses, people with diabetes, people with heart disorders, people with aging problems, people with arthritis, people with knee replacements, and situational. You will find at least 40 to 50% of the population that we are catering comes in this category, which otherwise is reduced to like 10% just for statistical reasons. But if you add to them dependent populations like children, carrying mothers, elderly, and all these diseases, I can tell you more than 50% of our country is in the category of disability at one time or the other. And it's a huge market, friends. I mean, I'm not just saying it's only from a charitable thing. Yes, it is something that we must do, but it's also about business. That this entire sector of population is not actively engaged in public transport, is not actively engaged in markets because nothing is accessible for them, right? And can we go next? And that is where I think I would come to my concluding narrative, which is please beware about the idea called design for the average. Let me give you a small story here. Go next. So this is a story from the US fighter jets who in the World War II were bombing across here and there. But they found, that this new jet fighter that they had, there were like 17 crashes that happened with that. And then they set up an investigation team to find out why are their jets crashing? Is there something wrong with the design of the aeroplane, or is there something wrong with the training of the pilots? When they did a complete meticulous check, and as you know how the flying industry works, and that to Air Force, they could find out there was nothing at flaw. Absolutely everything was perfect. And then they had a young recruit. And so here is something I really wish to compliment here, the youngsters, and that's why it's for them. That the young recruit that they said, he raised a question who was not actually an experienced researcher, but he raised a new question. And he raised the new question was that, have you checked the seat anthropometry and the ergonomics of the cockpit? And who is it designed for? So they said, well, it's designed based on the ergonomic data of the past pilots, and it's coming from an average thing. But the answer came was, who amongst these entire pilots had that average dimension? And the answer came was, none of those pilots actually had that average dimension. And this is where a big answer, I would say, comes from universal design, is that therefore we do not design for averages, but design for adaptations and accommodations. A simple example to this could be for those of you sitting on a computer and a computer chair. I would say that today's computer chairs with hydraulic push buttons to take you up and down is an example of adaptation around us. So for universal design as an inspiration, you don't have to go far, but you just see on that chair, your younger sibling could also sit, your mother or father can also sit, but within these chairs, you'll see there are problems. So the same chair has a problem, especially when a lady wears a sari. I'm sure the same if in southern part of India we wear dhotis or lungis, these chairs, the caster wheels can actually get stuck into there. So can you modify that design so that this becomes culturally adaptable? I remember in Coimbatore when I went to this Isha Foundation, I found a beautiful adaptation done there. They lowered down these chairs and so that you could sit cross-legged, which is a cultural adaptation, and you could work on computers in cross-legged posture. So which is a, I would say, very Indian posture while using a wheeling chair on a computer. So those are examples that I would say we have to create many more and innovate around us. Can we go next? So this is basically, the findings of this whole thing was that if you design for average, you've designed for no one, at least in the case of this cockpit for the pilots. And what they found was that there was nobody who had exactly the same dimensions as you have an average. And that is where you have to look at median populations, you look at statistically other significant groups so that you can accommodate majority of them, if not all of them, right? Can we go ahead? So friends, this is the whole soul of universal design can be understood from this graph, which I've created for you to say that below are the varieties of humans that you see, and if the average is about a person who is fit, please understand even you and I are fit only for a few years of life, provided we've got all senses in place. Even people who are wearing spectacles means they are on some marginal line. The idea of universal design is to push this average towards the non-average, is to expand this without making major changes in the existing design. If as long as that is possible, and how is that possible? A simple example I can give you. So when you design a washroom for a residence, normally it is 750 mm or 800 millimeters is the door width. If I recommend that, please make it 1000 millimeter, which is, I know, a large space I'm asking, but then if you take the frame width out of it, you actually get 900 mm. That 900 mm is going to work for your entire life. Even if you're on a wheelchair, even if you're on a baby pram, even if you go on a knee replacement surgery, and even if you are absolutely weak and feeble. So in all possible cases, that door width will work for you without making any special adaptation. Yes, it may mean few square inches of spaces going extra and you paying for that, but then you're paying for your own self. So I think one of the questions I recollect, which usually comes is, how do you convince people and all? I think convincing will start only when conversations will happen. There is no formula that by which you can convince. The second way of convincing is creating demonstrations, creating examples, creating more proactive things. And then the third is by doing innovations in terms of business models, innovations in terms of practices, innovations, all. And the fourth is, all this need not be done individually, friends. It can be done as a wonderful teamwork. The problem is, if we don't even start the conversation, convincing will never happen. And let's go forward. So this is an example of, OXO Good Grips. You can actually see this case study on the web by Mr. Faber, Sam Faber, who ran an entire industry of kitchen products all his life from his grandfathers. But when he retired from that industry, he found his wife, who had the love of cooking, could not cook well. Cooking was a pain because she developed arthritis in the hands. And that is when he innovated what is called as OXO Good Grips, and which today, if you see, has so many 60 and 100 patents and so many high products, which are basically about grips for all. So he got sensitized only after he got retired, while he was in the entire kitchen industry, such that his son also took over from him, Mr. Faber, if you see his case study. And finally, of course, you get to the entire world, to Amazon also, you can buy these products. These are called OXO Good Grips, and amazing grips for coffee makers, of all these things, for people who would like to hold these kind of things in a gentler way, right? So the solutions need not be, again, I'm saying rocket science. The solutions are again around us, and we can also do many of these solutions only if we are able to vigilantly question what's happening around us. Let's go next. towards the end. So friends, I'm just bringing back this discourse to architectural education that we've always seen the Vitruvian man. Of course, in today's world, I would say this is a very gender biased image and we must contest about it. Universal design is missing if it's talking about the perfect human like the Vitruvian man. There is no perfect human that exists around. As a result, we have to shift from this image at the center of design, go to the next one, to images like these, which incorporate others along with them, a variety around with them. And if not us, then who else will? So please understand, friends, on one side, there is a great challenge that we can cry and talk about. But on the other side is a wonderful opportunity that all of you can do so much that nobody has done about. So even if you start sensitizing yourself, create empathetic experiences, look at this as a knowledge resource, generate data, do some kind of research on this, understand anthropometry, ask little children what their preferences are, design a street for a children, design a kindergarten well, look at a furniture. When you design furniture, I don't know how in your institution you have, but I know we are extremely biased in buying furniture, which is only right-handed furniture. What about people who use left hands? What about fixing an ablution tap in a washroom when you fix it? How do you design a door handle for most of the ATMs? You will find handles which you cannot grip. So you have to raise inquiries about all these questions. And that's again what I'm coming back to is what's happening around us. Let's start walking around it. Let's see it so that we can have insights on it and take it forward. Can we go next? So friends, you know, this whole idea, this whole journey is not really about the idea of difference as distinction, but it's an idea about respecting your uniqueness. All of us look for originality. But what happens when we actually create architecture? We start expecting that all humans must be same. So, you know, that's not really fair. And that's the little theory, that's the little philosophy. If it's embedded into your stage, at this stage, I would say the world can be free from the biases that designers have created in the past. So we have a lot of work to do in two forms. One is to correct the infrastructure that we already have. And second, not to repeat the mistakes in the new infrastructure that's going to come. And we have immense amount of potentialities, just that we have to repackage, reorient, and redefine ourselves into the new markets so that we become more socially relevant, more humanly relevant. And I can bet on this. As long as you can find that you're relevant to even one human in this world, you will not die out of hunger. I'm pretty sure about that, what to say about jobs. And if you can build a business model around this, that you can serve even 10,000 people, 1,000 people, and you can take care of their entire lifetime by providing great services for design, support, etc. I don't think you'll even need any other job. But yes, we have to innovate in new ways of looking at architectural interventions into society. Because if you see, if computer science can come into banking, computer science can go into rocket science, architecture can also go into computer science, and architecture can also come back into society. Architecture can also go into politics. You have to understand the politics of urban situations as well, and the politics around which the sociology has to be integrated into universal design, which provides immense scope for us to advance universal design into an Indian context. And let's go forward, I think, to just towards the end. So I'm just trying to bring back, please keep this picture in front of all of you in your own homes. If you can take a small print and stick this and just read the first 6 goals and just see if there is any architecture coming anywhere. The first goal talks about poverty, talks about food, hunger, health, education, gender, and water. Even if it doesn't talk about architecture, I would say architects have to deal with all these 6 goals at some time or the other. Now look at clean drinking water. How about a person who is vision impaired knows whether he can access clean drinking water in a city? Can somebody take up this project about providing community drinking water? Gender equality. When it comes to public transportation, our female gender is still not considered safe. They're considered vulnerable. How can you design such that this can be taken care of? It doesn't mean, of course, design of one public transport system, but it's about street design, it's about interfaces, it's about also communication design, I would say, in this case. Quality education. Now, I'm sure while all of us are connecting under a COVID situation, look at COVID. COVID has created what is called as situational disability. Are all of you going out of your homes? Mostly no, I guess. And being confined to your homes is a great opportunity for you to empathize what a person who actually cannot go home entire life would feel. if all of us have started feeling frustrated in just 1 month, 2 months, right? Just imagine. And then talk about what is the educational model for them. What about good health? So people who are getting some kind of disability for one reason or the other. In fact, I have been visiting hospitals for some reasons in ICU in last 2-3 days. And I know how challenging it is to get access to good health into even a decent hospital. And you will find even in the best of hospital, many a times the washrooms are not accessible. Amazing phenomena that I'm seeing. So I'm just trying to say we have many paths to take, and I just cannot imagine that our youngsters are out of jobs. They are not. But the youngsters have to plunge a role of leadership on any of these goals, I would say, if not all, and see and find how can architecture make a difference. Only then you would be perhaps making a kind of impact onto society, which is the need of the hour. So I think towards the end, I thought even if you forget my entire presentation, it's absolutely okay. Just go to the second last slide. This is something I will leave behind for people who are involved with pedagogy, is that look at how we can take human-centric issues into design, into assessments, into evaluations and researching into these futures as part of our education. But since all of you are from SRM, so I just try to simplify the whole thing for you as my second last slide before I thank you, which is the next one. So friends, in order to design better, I would say, please remember your own SRM, if nothing else, is please simplify whatever you're designing. Second, make it relevant to the context so that you can relate, relate. The poor person relates in a different way. The rich person relates in a different way. And third is go ahead and make it. Don't stop there, right? Only then what you make will remain relevant, as well as kind of will remain simplicity connected. And here is a powerful quote which I'm carrying since at least since 2006. And I always kind of make it a point to share with youngsters, because I know many of us get very quickly frustrated if things don't come our way. And that only thing is, almost anything you will do will be insignificant, because I don't think we can do big things, great things. We can, but let the society tell if they are great. Let us not evaluate too much on our own. So even if you can do that insignificant thing, I would leave you with the messages, please do that, because there is no one else who is going to do it, because that's very important for you to do it. And that's what Gandhiji said. And just to conclude, I will summarize with one small quick story, and that's what my thanks slide would lead to. The story is about, a small girl in class 7th who was studying like you. And when the teacher had given them an exercise, kids, write down about the 7 wonders of the world. Everybody wrote about, just the way our rote learning teaches us. The Taj Mahal, the Great Wall of China, the spirits, the Sphinx, the pyramids of Egypt, etc., etc. There was one little girl who could not write. And I always relate to that girl many a times, because many a times some of us are like that. Some of us are those children who are very shy in the classrooms. Some of us are those children who have never been patted by anyone else and who told us that you can really do well. And that girl, when she did not write anything, the teacher asked her that, may I help you? What these 7 wonders of the world are? The little child was thinking very differently. And what she said is, she said, ma'am, according to me, the 7 wonders of the world are to see, to hear, to touch, to taste, to smell, to laugh, and to love. Friends, most of us, if we are blessed with, and I can tell you out of conviction, if you empathize and find that even if you have one of these wonders with you, just imagine the absence of one of these wonders. If you don't have eyes, see what the world is going to be. If you don't have ears, see what the world is going to be. If you don't have legs, see what the world is going to be. Imagine one sense less. The wonders of the world seem to be collapsing for us, but that should not be the case, right? So we are all blessed with wonders in our own minds and bodies. Let's use these wonders to create more wonderful creations and act responsibly, I would say, in order to be called as really the citizens and civilizational futures. Because Don't ask what the current societies and governments are doing for us. I think we would be responsible to be raised back this question again. What did we do when we were given these opportunities? And I think so your enlightenment, your education would be the greatest benefit that the society can receive. And please go ahead. COVID shall pass away sometime or soon, but COVID is a wonderful learning opportunity. So let's not wipe it away. Take this path into empathy, go back into our homes, connect with our families, and become those humans first, and then the professionals that is lying awaited. With those words, I think I've really extended my time. I thank you for my for a very patient listening. Really thank you and indebted to you for this session.
We are very indebted for the passion and the information that you've shared with us. And I think everyone here shares that and are so happy that they have been here with you and listening to you. Thank you so much. I would like to say something is when I called Gaurav ji on the phone, just a few days back, he was at hospital. And the positive note and the confirmation that he gave was so thought-provoking and special. He did not hesitate even for a second. He was just outside the ICU when he was giving me his confirmation. And today he has been here. He said, I will make it for you because I want to reach it to the younger generation. Your passion is simply phenomenal, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure. And I wish all the best to all participants and all the audiences.
Yeah,
thank you
and
so much.
Muthuswamy, you can take over from here.
Thank you, sir. Actually, it's the thought process which what all the youngsters should have. So that you just told it. So it was really inspiring, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Now I'd like to, ma'am, shall we show screen?
The video?
Share the video.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We shall move on to the final session of the day. We will showcase a video of the 3 days before we go to the last and valedictory of today. Srinidhi?
Yes, ma'am, I'm sharing it now. Ma'am, I'm having a problem with sharing the video.
Okay. Monisha, ma'am? Okay, we'll share the video later. No issues. Go ahead with the program.
Okay, ma'am. So I'd like now our Honorable Dean Sir of SM School of Architecture and Interior Design, Dr. P. Satish Kumar, to give a welcome note for the guest speakers of the validatory function. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. It was a very fantastic session. I'm sorry I'm not able to come in online because of the poor connectivity issues. But still, thank you so much. The speaker, you made it amazing, sir. Honestly to say, Professor Anita was speaking so big about you. I thought it is every program what our people do is so great. So I was thinking it is of that kind. But today I was also part of this and listening to you in YouTube. And it's something rocking and mind-blowing, which I myself haven't expected. And thank you so much. And you are the best of all the sessions what we had this time. And thank you so much. And of course, the inbox is getting filled up with many things. And that's the real gift. The purpose of life is this. And you have enlightened many of these children here. And also the faculties and other architects available here. Keep doing these great things, sir. All the best. God bless you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Also, I welcome everybody here. The speaker, architect, the keynote speaker for all the day, and all the other special speakers like Architect Gaurav, and also the students, faculties, professors, and other guests who were there as part of this particular session for these 3 days. You all made it, and all these sessions were very meaningful and purposeful. It was so excellent and very informative. And thank you so much, especially to the students and the organizers. You have made it very well, and keep doing great. And let's hold all these kind of excellent experts along with us. Let's learn and let's grow together. Thank you so much.
So thanks a lot, sir. So now we'll have a first guest note speaker, Architect Sandhya Manjunath. Architect Sandhya Manjunath graduated from Malad College of Engineering, Department of Architecture. She holds a master's degree in construction management from JNFE Hyderabad after interning with top architects in Bangalore. She, along with the juniors, founded and nurtured Innova Architects. It is one of the leading architecture and design firms in Bangalore, with almost 15 plus architects working for the past 18 years. A woman with a mission, she designs elegantly and lightly and supporting equality through education and feminism. We warmly welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Ma'am?
Yes, Sandhya ma'am is there? Yes.
You can hear me? Am I audible?
Very
Yes,
much,
ma'am.
ma'am. Thank you for patiently being with us.
No, I would really appreciate and applaud for the whole 3 days of the session that is going on. This was really enlightening and a real learning process to me also, listening to such renowned architects who have done great work in this field. So I'm sure, all the students must be really, really happy because there's so much to take away from here, from the 3 days workshop that is happening. Because as I see, there were some renowned speakers like from Pony, Ganesh Babu sir, and now Gaurav Raheja sir, who really stressed upon the fact that how universal design becomes part of our profession. And universal design as a word coined, which has become very, very important right now. And especially with the scenario that we are facing where all of us are, enclosed between four walls. And there are so many disabilities that we are trying to overcome with. With all this, I would say that, and Gaurav Raja sir really aptly put it across to us, saying that how important it is to be sensitive towards all the various, being that human considerations, and disabilities is not something which can be taken lightly. And all our spaces have to be designed sensitively towards all ages, all age groups, all disabilities that is there. So I'm sure students must be, and our keynote speaker for the last 3 days, Gaurav Das, oh, that was wonderful, sir. You really gave us a lot of insight into a lot of guidelines, building codes, how various countries have adapted for various ways to overcome this, our various barriers that we have, making barrier-free designs. So universal design, which is, the main topic for the last 3 days. So what is it that we are understanding from the word universal design? Of course, it was coined by architect Ronald Mays, who said that universal design is for, inclusive design, or it has to be comfortable and aesthetically appealing for all age groups, for everyone. Completely abled design is universal design. Or inclusive design, why do we say inclusive design? Because when we design it for a particular disability or for a particular individual, we call it inclusive design. So there was a lot of deliberations. I think being the last speaker on the valedictory session, I don't want to say much about the topic. You've heard enough on the topic. I don't want to get into technical details of it. Thank you so much, Anita, the convener, and special mention to Dr. Satish, Dean of SRM, who is doing a great job and this time keeping everybody engaged and active. And I think all students are benefiting a lot out of this and not missing the point that we are all under lockdown. So really, really engaging session. And thank you so much. I enjoyed all the 3 days. And I applaud the whole SRM team for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with all the students present here. All the best to you. All of you are young architects who would be professionals later. And I think this is a very, very important factor which has been told to you, that how to incorporate in your profession when you're designing, and how to be sensitized towards design when you're practicing, whether it is residence or public spaces. Of course, government has come up with a lot of guidelines which have made mandatory to include universal design as part of our designing process. But we should also be, as humans, we should be sensitive towards a lot of these things. So all the best to all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks a lot. And now I'd like James to give introduction to our next speaker, architect Lokesh, sir. James, on to you.
Actually, let's see the video prepared by our students before we go on to the next guest speaker. Monisha ma'am, can you present this video?
I'll be sharing it.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, start.
We welcome you all
to our online workshop,
Being creatively rational.
An architect's approach
towards universal design.
To this wonderful gathering, a pleasant day, and an awesome gathering spells an inspiring session.
That is, we may have a different proposals like a barrier-free or physically challenged or differently able, whatever dimensions you call.
But good teachers teach, but great teachers transform. We, Kushi Suraj and James Joseph, are the hosts for today. And
mind is the most powerful weapon on the earth, above the earth and under the earth. And this is thoughtful education, indeed motivating. And thank you once again, ma'am. So,
optimal use of a building with people of all ages. I'm talking about elderly, young people, people with disabilities, these people, normal people with abilities, and also people with any status, rich, poor, middle class, what have you. So these are the parameters that go into creating a successful, accessible building.
Through these 3 days, what I would like to achieve is, first of all, there should be an awareness to us in the terms of what we can do, what are our scopes in the field of design. That means how responsible can we be?
Hello, Mr. Gaurav. I have a personal thought about the disabled people.
Yes, sir.
Today, we are proud to have two eminent guests with us who have honored our request at such short notice. They are none other than Professor Ganesh Babu from AAAD and Professor Manivannan Ilango from staff Anna University.
Me, Catherine Mary Stanley and Snigdha Thakur from third year are the moderators for today's session.
Honored to have Professor and Head of Aditya Academy of Architecture and Design, Bangalore, Dr. K.N. Ganesh Babu amongst us.
Will not realize this because we are all sort of fit. How things change suddenly is the dramatic part of life. So a person who was very active, now today he is starting to learn how that. Architecture is not all about doing that. It is about understanding the science required and giving justice.
Universal design is not a new design, it is just a process. In this process, all we need to do is we need to be more of empathy to the idea of universal design.
The faculty, the participants here. We have the final and an important session tomorrow. So looking forward to meet you all. Have a great day. Thank you.
The leader chose to work on the concept of invisible, which reminds some of his current development. We welcome you, sir,
and involved in many various national and international projects. For the past 2 days, we have been gaining immense knowledge on the universal design.
The parts of the components of accessibility which is mentioned in the guidelines, how these type of projects or this designer, this particular designer has dealt with that.
thank you guys. Thank you especially for that video editing team and the design team for making this wonderful video and including today's sessions too. So nice. So now I welcome Mr. Architect M. Lokesh, a strategist, a visionary and a brilliant mentor, a postgraduate with specialization on housing. He's also the principal architect of his own practice, Lokesh and Associates, and has numerous residential, interior and public projects to its credit. He has been an architect developing integrated architecture since 2007. His attitude and vision too is known to be loud and clear. He is the recipient of the Construction Academy Award for Housing in 2019. He also has few of his projects published in reputed architect magazines. 11 years of journey in SRM seat, received the Construction Academy Award for Housing Design in 2 acres from Mailsami Annadurai and is a scientist. His landscape design of Natyasan Park has published in A+D magazine. He also, as a state library competition, shortlisted and presented in front of Chief Minister among 26 firms all over the world participated, and design was placed in the top 2. Welcome, sir. Over to you.
Yes, hello. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, it was a wonderful session. Thank you, Dr. Satish sir, for inviting me as a speaker. And I was honored and humbled to attend this session. I was so happy that students are working very enthusiastically, and all the coordinators who was working here. It is not an easy job. Recently, we finished hashtag 2020 as an online virtual symposium. As we as SRM team, we all know that, and definitely our SRM team is giving to the society. I'm so happy, and thank you, Professor Anita ma'am, and thank you all my colleagues in SRM team. And Gaurav ji have given a BV Doshi's thought, architect BV Doshi's thought towards the design. Each and every detail he have noticed, and all the details, even for a handicapped person or for a blind person, how we have to go practical way. It is very amazing, to see. And architect Ponni ma'am is, where I started my journey. My two-year of journey was started with OCA architect, Oscar and Ponni architects, and she is also, like Dr. Satish sir said, she is like a Saha Hadid in South India, and she also represented very well. And thank you for the opportunity given to me. We always work together and achieve our goals with the leadership of Dr. Satish sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Muthuswamy?
Yeah, now I'd like Khushi Suraj to introduce our next guest speaker, Mani Meghale. Sorry.
Good afternoon. Architect Mani Meghale completed her undergraduation in Hindustan College of Engineering and post-graduation from Hindustan University. She secured the first place with distinction in her MR with a gold medal for the same. She has 12 years of experience in academics and worked with various eminent institutions across Chennai and Kanchipuram. Currently, she is an associate professor in Mohammad Sattar AG Academy of Architecture, Chennai. Her areas of interest are architectural conservation and history. Welcome, ma'am. Over to you.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, you are. You could increase the volume a little.
Okay, right. Yes. Yes, ma'am. It's full. Okay. So thank you, dear, for the introduction. And I would like to thank our Dean of SRMS, Dr. Professor Satish Kumar, for having given me this opportunity. It's a great privilege, sir. I have never expected this happening at this point of time. I would also extend my gratitude to Anita ma'am and other coordinators of the 3-day workshop. It was indeed a great session, but I was able to attend only today's session, which is actually a good opportunity. I will also follow that in the Facebook and see what are the other 2 days, the sessions of the other 2 days that had happened in the past. And getting on to the valedictory part of the workshop, there are few things which I want to address the students. I have my own agenda and a very few points, just 2 minutes of talk for the students, specific for the student group. First one is your life choices on education and profession. So it is all going to be my life experiences, short and sweet. So I hail from a background where my parents are government employees and they are very conservative. So getting into higher studies posed a lot of challenge and struggles. In my case, 12th itself was a great success because I studied in a Tamil medium background. I was suddenly shifted to an English medium school all of a sudden. But I fought against all odds and managed to secure a merit seat in medicine. So which is everyone's dream, the current society's dream. It is like one trend which goes on and on for I think it has its own eternity, the course of medicine. But something in me alarmed my mind not to take this opportunity, because I know I wouldn't survive a day in medicine. When I chose architecture, my father was totally against it. And தமிழ் அழகா ஒன்று சொன்னார், என்னன்னா நீ வந்து இந்த ஈயம் பித்தாளைக்கு பூசுற மாதிரி நீ தெருவா கொளர் எடுத்துட்டு போய் எந்த வீடு உடஞ்சிருக்குன்னு பார்த்து பூச போற, எனக்கு சுத்தமா இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் இல்லை அப்படின்னு. பட் ஐ வாஸ் so determined to take up this course. But I was taken aback when I can't even score a rank in BArch. It was so tough for me to understand building science. But I still didn't lose it and managed to score a great percentage in MArch and secure a gold medal for the same. So one request or an advice from my side to the students would be, follow your instinct and never ever regret for the choices you make in your life. It's after all your decisions and you have to support it. If you're not going to support it, who else can? So always work towards an aim. It can be small or big, whatever it is, but you will achieve it in one day. In one day, if you keep working towards it gradually for its success. And about choosing your peer group. So we always choose peer group based on who studies well. For a good performing student, the student will always choose a person who is good at studies. Yes, I have 5 close friends of mine from my childhood, like LKG, from LKG, except one person along with me. Others are not so good at studies. I think they are very average performers. Sometimes they fail too. We somehow clung on to for so many years. I'm 36 years old and we are still best friends, and we meet every year, once in every year, twice in every year. Now, after all these years, one of them is a sub-collector of Ramnad, one is a software engineer, one is an artist and a professor. He's also a professor in Viscom, and one is a successful HR administration executive. So never underestimate your peer group, or never choose your peer group based on the performances of their grades, or whatever you call that, marks or percentage or whatever it is. Grades are not the one which determines a person, but interest and hard work towards achieving one. So third one would be the respect for elders. One day is an advance, 1 year is an advance. So your elders are always advanced than you. Hence, reserve some respect for your elders. With that, I would like to end my speech, and I once again thank our dean and organizers for this wonderful opportunity, and the speakers. Sir, to the speakers, it's a huge thing, the universal design. Once after seeing the presentations, I can understand the amount of knowledge that I lack as an academician in universal design, and it definitely has thrown me a certain amount of insight. So I can just feel there is a lot that I have to learn about my comfortable mode of area. So this is something which is really needed out of a session, that to create interest in someone who is not caring about the title like universal design. So far it is like providing a ramp along with the staircase. It is like that, and now it is like the narratives that the last speaker has quoted. It has given me a lot of insight. I will definitely look into universal design in a different way after attending these 2 sessions. And thank you so much, SRMist, the team, and also the team. Thank you so much, sir.
That's so really nice of you to share your thoughts with us. Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to have Srinidhi to introduce the next guest speaker, architect Vijay Krishna. Over to you, Srinidhi.
Thank you, Muthuswamy. Vijay Krishnan has more than 19 years of experience in the field of architecture, interior design, and project management, with 14 years of private practice in the name of Vision Architects and Interior Design. He has 5 years experience in leading architect and interior design firm based at Chennai for architect, interior design, and project management. Most of his project involves in the residential interiors, hospital interiors, commercial interiors, rental interiors, and multi-store apartments, individual housing, and villas. His professional strengths includes handle most project times and awares of the technicalities, design in depth to micro level to create a rhythm, and has a really fast track record. The screen is all yours, sir. We welcome you.
Hi, good morning, one and all. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks for a nice introduction. And
Sir, you're audible, but you're not visible like me.
no, I think I have put my camera on mute. I'm in the side actually, not in right position to share the bandwidth. So maybe I'll continue with this. Hope you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
I think it's an amazing topic selection and amazing workshop being conducted. Universal design actually it changed the whole perspective. When I missed the 2-day session. In fact, I joined today. What I thought about it and what I came across was mind-boggling. Certain things was which I would like to highlight. Codes are there. Codes are there for long. I think we have NPCs and all other things prevailing, but adaptation and transforming it into a reality is lying with us. And the narrative part brings up the importance. In fact, it highlights why we need to be more sensitive into these things. I think it's quite amazing. And being a commercial architect and being a more professional oriented person, it is quite refreshing for me and to address all these things. Another thing which I would like to highlight here is I'm been watching, being part of this whole webinars from April and almost 4 months. In fact, it reminds me one thing like implementing the ideas on time, or else someone else would be doing this. I think Dr. Satish has, and along with his team, has done it on time and precisely during this pandemic. Else, it wouldn't have been such a great success. And the reach was phenomenal. I think I close my address with this, and it's time. Let's break. Thanks everyone to giving me an opportunity on this. Nice.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure. Before we have the last guest speaker, I would like Monisha ma'am to share a last view.
Yeah, Mr.
Hello, good morning everyone. This is Anjana from BRP section 3rd year, and I'm here to speak about the workshop. So day 1 and day 2 of the workshop was done by Gaurav Das Mahapatra and Punni ma'am, which is very useful, and the speech they gave was very well done. And the organization and our beloved friends done a good job during the workshop. And I hope everyone registered for this workshop got many useful things, and I hope they learned a lot. And I wish we come up with many workshops further. And thank you.
Hi, this is Kaplan from BRP 3rd year, SRM sir. The webinar which is held between 27 to 29 July, which was very useful. Thanks for this webinar.
I'm Abhinya Ravichandran from 3rd year. I've attended the 3-day workshop conducted by SED SRM IST on Universal Design. Personally, I found the workshop to be very informative, interactive and precise. I would like to thank our expert speakers for guiding us from the very basics and giving us a good head start into Universal Design. I'm also grateful for the management for giving us these amazing platforms and resources to equip ourselves better. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dinesh from Vasanam University. This entire webinar was tremendously informative for students like us, and it was put forward in a very simple and elegant way by the keynote speaker, Mr. Gaurav Das Mahapatra. Thanks to him, and it inspired us a lot to consider the universal design principles and then design, and include all types of users. And thanks to the special guests who appeared here, and they shared their real life experiences as architects. That was very more informative for us. And at last, thanks to the coordinators and the moderators who made this entire event possible. Thank you.
Thank you guys for this nice video and for the comments. Now I welcome Mr. Architect Vasudevan TJ. He has finished BArch from RC Trichy and MArch from the School of Architecture, Anna University, Chennai. He has a professional experience about 28 years in architectural services and interior design. He worked as an architect from 1994 to 2002 in Tamil Nadu Police Housing Corporation Limited, where he was assigned to design the staff quarters and office buildings for the Tamil Nadu Police, Fire and Prison departments. He started his own practice in 2002 and has completed around 350 projects of residential, commercial, industrial, and educational institutions in and around Chennai. He is a registered panel architect for various banks, including RBI. Now, as a director of School of Architecture of St. Peter's Institute of Higher Education and Research, he extends his service in teaching and guiding students with his practical experience. He has presented papers in national and international conferences and won the paper award in 2 conferences. I welcome, sir. The screen is yours.
Yes, I think some technical difficulties with sir. He's not here now.
He's got ejected.
Can we go ahead with the agenda?
Yes, we'll go ahead with the agenda. Muthuswamy?
Ma'am?
Muthuswamy, you can go ahead with the vote of thanks.
Monisha ma'am is presenting, right? So.
Okay, yes. Today's
Sorry,
vote of thanks. Now we have come to the end of our 3 days online workshop on universal design. It's my privilege to have been, asked to propose a vote of thanks on this beautiful day. I, architect Grace Hansika, on behalf of School of Architecture and Interior Design and the entire team of Universal Design online workshop, I extend a hearty vote of thanks. I would like to first thank our keynote speaker, Architect Gaurav Das Mahapatra, for sharing his invaluable insights with his presentations, assignment, and by answering our questions. And I'm sure this is going to help and upgrade our students and participants in their long architectural journey. Thank you, Gaurav, sir. I thank our guest speaker for all these 3 days, starting from day 1, Architect Ponni ma'am from Maskar and Ponni Architects. Day 2, Professor Ganesh Babu sir, Director of AAAD. Dr. Manivannan Ilango from School of Architecture and Planning. Day 3, we had Dr. Gaurav Raheja sir from IIT Roorkee. Professor Sandhya Manjnath, Director of Aurora Design Institute, who have added so much to our Universal Design workshop by sharing their practical knowledges, their own experiences, and their view and necessity towards the topic. Thank you, guests. I also thank the scholars who have come here, Architect Lokesh sir, Architect Vijay Krishnan sir, Architect Mani Meghale ma'am, who have come here to support us, especially our institute. Thank you, scholars. I would like to thank the entire team, who have worked and showed up behind the screen with smiling faces. Our convener, Professor Anita ma'am, the organizing team, Architect Surya Prakash sir, Architect Kavita ma'am, Architect Monisha ma'am, the young moderators, Sushi Surat, James, Catherine, Snigdha, Srinidhi, Muthuswamy, and off-screen support by our faculties and students, Niveda, Yokesh, Priyanka, Abhinaya, Hitesh, Ruhi, Kapilan, Shafin, Satyavati, Chakruti, Anjana, Surya, Naveen, from BArch 3rd years, and many more who have been our backbone throughout all the stages of the workshop. Thank you, friends. Finally, I would like to thank our beloved Dean Sir, Dr. P. Satish Kumar, without whom there wouldn't be enough encouragement and motivation to conduct this online workshop. Thank you, sir. Last but not the least, I thank our beloved participants for being such a wonderful crowd. And I wish you all success in your life. Let's grow our architecture fraternity for the goodness of all. Thank you all. We will all meet soon in another workshop by School of Architecture and Interior Design. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Saravana Raja sir, you can end the meeting. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir.